Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Kimber Foster. She's an author and also an entrepreneur. Welcome to the show, Kimber.
Hi, it's a pleasure to be here.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show. Welcome to India in this online form, Kimber. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we learn from you. We'll be learning about healing and empowerment, all these things from you, Kimber. But before that, let's understand and learn a bit more about your journey, about your background, so that people know who they are listening to.
Well, I'm a mom of three amazing children. I was married for 27 years, together with my ex-husband for 30. Um, in what I thought was a lifetime marriage, but I realized that I was in a toxic relationship, and in order to survive, I needed to break free. It wasn't until later that I realized that I was married to a narcissistic psychopath. But over time, I lost myself and I became a husk of the person I once was. So that's
Right.
me in a nutshell of my past.
Right, right. So I want to understand, Kimber, you talked uh, about your earlier marriage in terms of, uh, staying around somebody who we call as narcissist.
Hmm.
How, why does it take so much of time? How much time did it take for you to realize about, how it was impacting you?
It's something gradual that happened over time. Um, as his career grew, so did his ego, so did a lot of those manipulative traits. I use the story of the frog. When you place a frog in a pot of warm water and you increase the temperature over time, the frog doesn't realize that it's boiling to death. I was that frog. But if you put a frog in a pot of boiling water, it's going to jump right out. So I was that frog that over time was boiling to death. I knew something was wrong. I became a husk of the person I once was. It's just a slow, gradual process. Sure, there was warning signs at the beginning, but I ignored them. I stayed in it for the sake of the marriage and for the children, thinking that by keeping that family unit intact was what was best for my family. But it wasn't until I lost myself and really the ability to care for myself properly and my children when I realized that I was in a very toxic relationship.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So I want to understand for the audience is that, in a lot of relationships, people, when they grow up, either man or women, they grow in their career, they earn better recognition, better money, better position,
Hmm.
and some sort of, behavioral change will come into them. How do we know it's a narcissist change and not a normal change that can happen? We are all humans. Such change
Yeah.
will come. How? I want to understand that for the audience to understand that difference as a simple individual. I don't think you are a doctor or anywhere else. And for an individual, it is very difficult to know about these things. And if then they might just say, okay, this person has become much changed a bit because they have got a new promotion, must be a narcissist. So that's why I'm asking from
Yeah.
that point of view.
That's such a good question. Um, yeah, I mean, at the beginning, I would never have said he was a narcissist. Yes, he had some of the characteristics. Um, but I think a lot of it has to do with power and control and controlling others. A narcissist only cares about themselves. So they use you and they do whatever they can to promote themselves, their career, um, at your sake. So it's like sucking the life out of you, essentially. And they use all these manipulative traits, making you feel crazy, insecure. They demean you, all in attempt to control you. That's the difference. A normal person who's successful won't use you to any means to further their career.
Right, right,
Yeah.
Kimber. So, in terms of, uh, knowing about it, you talked about you lose yourself. You don't even remember what type of person you were in the first place. How
Yeah.
did it impact you? How did it change you, so that okay, you are not the same person anymore, in terms of, either in terms of your outlook towards life, either in terms of financials, either in terms of job. Help us understand that a bit.
Well, yeah. I mean, we met in college. I was ready to take on the world, had a great job. We got married right out of college, but then I started having children. And then we moved overseas. So I didn't have a work visa. So we relied solely on his income. Um, so I didn't have that sense of purpose other than being a wife and a mother. I mean, sure, I volunteered for, the school board and I did my little projects, but essentially my husband and my children were my life at that point. Um, and like I said, as his career grew, so did his ego, so did the abuse. He wanted to keep me underfoot. And to do that, they demean you, they smear you, they make you feel less than and insecure. And it's just, you go into this severe depression and you feel like they are your world and you can't make it without them.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And then you finally realized one day and moved forward. What was it that, uh, was is narcissism something that develops over time, or is it from the very beginning? What is your understanding? What does a narcissist want from the other person, whoever it is?
Hmm.
In your understanding, what was it, and why does it become so hard to leave them? Maybe they have an agenda, you don't, but it becomes so difficult to leave them. It takes such a long time. Help us understand that part of their journey.
Yeah. I did a lot of research. A lot of times they say they had a bad upbringing, that a narcissist is very insecure and has low self esteem themselves. So um, they tend to go for people who are kind, giving, um, empathetic, someone that they can manipulate and control. Um, it was the perfect storm for our marriage. I was a people pleaser. Um, I always put everybody first besides myself. So it was the perfect combination. A narcissist likes to use you and gain whatever they can from you. So when it comes to a point where you just know internally that something's got to change, it's that fight or flight. I was miserable. I was depressed. I was sad. I was being abused. But then again, they would say, "Oh no, you're making a big deal out of everything. You're blowing things out of proportion." They even would call you crazy. But internally, you knew you weren't crazy. That's when I knew I needed to leave. And that's when the real war started. Because narcissists like to control you. Um, I don't even know if my husband really truly loved me, even with 3 kids and being such an amazing mom that I was and wife. I think they look at you more as a piece of property, something that they own. And a narcissist's biggest fear is abandonment. So when you leave a narcissist, they're not happy. It's almost like they're losing their, I want to say, like an addiction. They feed off your energy, they feed off the things that they don't internally have, compassion and love and kindness. Um, And so when that's gone, it's very difficult for a narcissist to let go. It's almost being an addiction to drugs or alcohol.
Right, right,
Mm,
Kimber. So,
yeah.
uh, when your life was so much, you know, revolving around family, how
Mhm,
did you finally then uh, get to the point of moving? Because there are two aspects to it. One was because you said your life was fully revolving around the family. One was then
mhm.
the healing part. The other sort of annulment of the marriage that we call as divorce, and then the empowerment part. How was that journey for you? How did you gather all that wherewithal in you, as well as the resources for yourself?
Well, I was a husk of the person I once was, and I was, like I said, I stayed in it for the sake of the children, but then I realized I was teaching my children what a dysfunctional relationship is. I didn't want my kids seeing that and raising their kids or treating their spouses that way. Um, and it was a big factor for me. Um, but the biggest obstacle I had was overcoming fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of being alone, fear of next steps. He controlled everything, the money, the house. We were living in a foreign country. Where would I go? I couldn't just pack up my children and leave. So, overcoming that fear was obstacle number one. But I realized if you're not changing, you're choosing. You're choosing to be in that toxic relationship. You're choosing to be abused. You're choosing to teach your children what a dysfunctional relationship is. So for me, I had to make that cognitive choice to change. It wasn't easy. So that was step number one, because you can't become who you are meant to be. And if you're in a constant state of fear, especially in a toxic relationship when someone's always bringing you down to control you. And then the second step was once you do make that cognitive decision to leave, is being prepared. I was not. Nothing could have prepared me for the battle that lay ahead. He refused to move out of the home. So we went through the whole divorce process living in the same house, which I do not recommend. So that is what my book is about. It's about my journey of breaking free, my year of divorce. And I kept a journal. Thank goodness, because that journal saved me many times. And then once you actually break free and have the divorce, it's about empowerment, finding to love yourself again. But the biggest obstacle for me was forgiveness, forgiving myself, forgiving him. Um, I was like, how did I not see the abuse over the years? How did I not recognize that he was a narcissist? I didn't know any of it until I started doing research about how I had gotten to that place in my life. Like, how did I get here? And then I realized that my story was textbook. My story wasn't unique, it was universal. I didn't quit my marriage, I survived it. And so I should be proud. But it was really hard for me to forgive myself because, I take ownership. I didn't set proper boundaries. I didn't maintain a sense of self or a career. I put all my eggs in one basket, as they say, putting my husband and children first always. But it's so important to hold on to that sense of self and purpose. And I had lost that.
Right, right, Kimber.
Yeah.
You have written two books. One is A Year
Hmm.
of Thorns, and the other is The Divorce Checklist, the ultimate survival guide for breaking free from a narcissist. What is this divorce checklist all about? Means nobody prepares for a divorce, and nobody should. Then you are actually, uh, manifesting that. It
Yeah.
happens, and it happens. But I don't know. Maybe different people will have different take on that. In India, it is a bit more different than in the other parts of the world. Putting yourself into family, your full family, and everyone is a very
Mhm.
natural thing, either for man. or women.
Yes.
Obviously, you can't keep on deciding anything beyond that while it is. If it does not work, it does not work, but then that's a difference. So I want to understand, how do you prepare about this divorce checklist? Does it
Yeah.
happen after you think about it? Yeah, can you show it well? We can.
Oh, sure. The divorce checklist. It's the ultimate survival kit to breaking free from a narcissist, or really anybody that's going through a divorce. Um, I had never been divorced. I didn't know what to expect. I poured all over the internet, like trying to determine what I needed to do, what were the next steps. Um, we were going through thousands and thousands of dollars in attorney fees. We were in court every minute. It was his object to run up all the attorney fees so there'd be no money left when the divorce was finally finished. Um, so I created this divorce checklist for anybody that's thinking about or going through a divorce. And it talks about the different legal components. It talks about the division of assets, new things to consider. In the States, we have what we call a judgment of divorce. And it's kind of our holy Bible. If it's not written in your judgment of divorce, then it has no merit. So when you're going through a divorce, especially if you have children, there's a lot of things that are left out of that judgment that don't fall under what we call like the child support canopy, which is basic food, shelter, and clothing. So, what about cell phones? What if the cell phone breaks? What about driver's training? What if the kids get married? Who's going to pay for that? So, the greatest challenge in a divorce when you have children is the level of conflict with parents. Um, so, this guide and checklist is hopefully a tool to help parents identify those different items prior to divorce or to put in their divorce check or judgment so that you don't have that conflict afterwards. We still were going to court after our divorce because he wouldn't pay for certain things for the kids or said, yeah, I'll pay for the skis, and then would change his mind later. It was just a constant battle, and the kids were always caught in the middle, still are. It's really a sad thing. So this divorce checklist is a really good itemized list of everything that is important to talk about and come to terms with when you're in the disillusion of a marriage or a partnership.
Right,
Who's
right,
going to feed
Kimber.
the dog? Who gets the dog? There's so many different things that a normal legal document doesn't cover.
Right. So have you written it from a point of women, or is it for both sides?
Oh, both sides. Yeah, it's for both sides because you want to be clear on the division of your partnership. Like I said, who gets the dog? Who pays for cell phones? Who pays for the children's weddings? That's unisex. Yeah.
Okay. If woman has more money, then men can claim money there also. I don't know about the rules, but just out of curiosity, I'm asking.
Well, each state is different when it comes to divorce. In most states, it's a 50-50 split. It's just right down the middle. But that again, that depends on how long you've been married. For me, it was 27 years. We built everything together, so it was just a split down the middle. But it's funny with a narcissist, he wanted to give me zero, even though we built it all together, for over a lifetime. It was kind of interesting. And then we have what we call child support. And there's actually a calculator for that, which determines how much each parent makes. And there's a value they assign to it. And
Right,
that's based on
right,
how
Kimber.
many overnights and things like that with the kids.
Right. You have written your latest book, if I understand, A Year of Thoughts. Is it the
Mhm.
latest one?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Why do you call A Year of Thorns? It was a long period of marriage. Why do you call it? Can you show it well?
Oh,
Yes.
sure. Here at Thorns. So,
Right.
as I mentioned earlier, this was my journal. Um, One of my friends told me keep a journal during your divorce, and it saved me. Um, and in I didn't write it until my divorce was finished because I'd gotten to that point where, like, how did I get here? I didn't understand how I was divorced, how I had become a husk of the person I once was. And my one girlfriend, she told me that she was getting divorced because she was verbally abused. And I said, well, what does that entail? And she referred me to this book, The Verbally Abusive Spouse. And I read it and I said, oh my God, that's me. And then I just kept reading and researching. And I actually have a degree in psychology from in college. Um, but this is before the word narcissist was so common. Um, and then I realized exactly that I've been married to a narcissist. Um, and then I went back and started reviewing my journal and I said, oh, that's manipulation. That's gaslighting. That's a smear campaign. That's trivializing. Like all the things that I was reading in these books, I had an example. So it was like God was driving me to write this book, not only to share with people, but it was therapeutic for me to understand what happened and how I'd got to that place in my life. Being able to take ownership for what I did wrong and then being able to forgive too.
Right.
Yeah.
Life after divorce. How do you then built after that? And have you found yourself now?
I'm still searching. I am. I'm doing what makes me happy. Um I'm a florist, I'm an author, I'm a writer. Um and just trying to find what brings me joy. I've been going to therapy. You know, that many years in a toxic relationship, I hear that voice all the time. And it's learning to push those negative thoughts away. Those self-defeating thoughts when he says, you're not pretty enough, you're not skinny enough, you're not, I am enough. And so that's a big struggle is learning to get rid of those negative um, thoughts and that you've been conditioned over time. So yeah, it's about learning to find joy again in forgiveness and overcoming those self-defeating thoughts.
Right, right. There's much to learn about these things from you, Kimber, from your experience, from your books. And I'm sure a lot of people would, whoever needs this guidance, even for those people who do not want to get into that situation, they
Yeah.
also can benefit. So, for all those people, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Well, I have a link that they can go on with this podcast, and for right now, they can get my divorce checklist for free. And in that, I also have an will input their email, and they can get links to my website or to my book and to my blog and things like that. That I'm happy to share. And then I also do coaching. So if anybody finds themselves in a position where I don't know what to do next, or you need a little cheerleader, I'm there to help. Because it's unless you've gone through it yourself, it's hard to realize the level of despair. And there were times where I didn't want to get up. There were times I didn't want to live anymore. I mean, it's such a hard struggle. It's really, really difficult. So that's why I wrote my book and this checklist because I want people to know that you can do it. You just need to believe in yourself. You need to trust your gut, and that there are people and sources out there to help you.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. With this, it's a wrap on this very special
Oh,
edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
thank you for having me.